very glad to have this opportunity to introduce Bruce Bailey. I don't know Bruce, we've never met in person, but I reached out through the peacecorps.gov website to find a great speaker for us, hoping that it could be during Peace Month. But as Rotarians know, peace is every month for us. So my voice will hold out for this. Bruce Bailey was born in the UK to Australian and British parents. The family came to the United States in the early 1960s, and Bruce grew up in upstate New York. He went back to Britain to major at math at Cambridge University, then returned for grad school at Princeton, specializing in the math of fluid flows. A lucky trick took him to Tucson in 1986, and he became a math professor at the University of Arizona for 30 plus years. His thousands of students have become bankers, doctors, engineers, scientists, and professors. In 2003, Bruce joined forces with a couple of teacher friends to buy an old school bus, which they loaded with hands-on science activities and started driving to schools. The physics bus is now based in Ithaca, New York, and it still travels the US, inspiring children with the excitement of science. Besides teaching math and science, Bruce sang bass for many years with an a cappella group, Catacoustic Groove. Bruce retired from college teaching in 2021, but found himself pulled back towards the classroom. And he did a dream job for some of us. He joined the Peace Corps in 2023 and is now teaching junior high school math in a village in Ghana. Please welcome Bruce Bailey.
Okay. Julie, thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here. Hey, I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to be in Peace Corps. I am winding up 2 years in Peace Corps, but I'm happy to say that I have been approved to spend a third year here in Ghana. So that will be very exciting. Another thing to look forward to. And I didn't realize, I was listening to Julia Larson talking about the Global Rotary Fellowship, and that reminded me, of course, Rotary is global. My mother, when she was a teenager in Australia 70 years ago, she won a scholarship as a high school student to spend a year in Pennsylvania and in the US. And she chose Pennsylvania because Hershey's was based in Pennsylvania, and also Pennsylvania produced more ice cream than any other state in the country in the 1950s. So even before I was born, my family has had a long connection with Rotary. And I put in the chat, there's a link, I put in the chat, a link to our Rotary Club of Accra here in Ghana. And they do good work here in Ghana as well. And so Julie, you also kind of not exactly stole my thunder, but you made the most important point of my entire presentation right up front, which is that Peace Corps can be a dream job, and you don't have to be just a college student or a recent graduate to join the Peace Corps. And I have had a wonderful time being a Peace Corps volunteer post-retirement. I know I was a math teacher before I retired, and then I became a math teacher again. Hold on, I'm going to set my my stopwatch going so I don't talk too long. But I imagine it would be even more exciting to have an amazing change of career upon retirement, joining the Peace Corps, or doing any other kind of thing that retirement finally gives you the freedom to join in. Here I am, a retiree in the Peace Corps, challenges and adventures. And on the left is a picture of me on my first day in the village of Fodomehelu, but I didn't have a beard. And 2 years later, I have my beard is growing out, and I lost 25 pounds since arriving in Ghana. So many changes coming to Ghana, and some of them expected and some of them unexpected. Julie, please, next slide. The next slide is just a picture of, yeah, there we go. My previous work at the University of Arizona, wonderful school. I really, really enjoyed it. I fell in love with Arizona in one day after visiting in 1986, and then I was lucky enough to get a job there. And lots and lots of wonderful students. There's one of them right now, and I did after 30 years. It was the pandemic. My parents were getting elderly, and I wanted to spend more time with them. Lots of things pointed me in the direction of retiring. But then my dad passed away in 2022. My mom is doing fine, and I thought, okay, maybe it's time to do something. And all my life, I had been envious of people who had done Peace Corps right out of college. It had taken them on unexpected twists and turns, and I thought there was a precedent. Lots of retirees have been in the Peace Corps, including Jimmy Carter's mom, Lillian Carter, who joined the Peace Corps when she was in her 60s and spent 2 years in India working in the medical field. Next slide, please. So first thing, okay, this is my cohort. There are 11 of us that left the US in June of 2023. We all became math and science teachers, and we all didn't know what we were getting into. The first thing we got into was 3 months of training. We got back into the classroom, and this was the most intense educational experience I've ever had, because in 3 months we had to learn everything about Ghana, language, culture, how to be science teachers, which many of us had not, and how to cook foods that we had never eaten or tried before. So it was invigorating, to say the least. Next slide. And after we had all of our classroom training, they sent us to our villages, and I had to learn more things. I did know how to paint before I went to Ghana, but I did not know how to grind pepper, like on the left. That is fresh, very, very spicy hot peppers. And I did not know how to cut bamboo. But, you know, that is what I had to learn to survive, so I jumped into it as best I could. Next slide. People do not use knives or forks or chopsticks. Actually, they use knives a certain amount, but we don't use forks and spoons very much when eating. Almost all eating is done with the fingers, even the soup. And in the picture on the left is a hunk of a sort of squishy dumpling called biwik banku with soup. Is you pull off a little bit with your fingers, dip it in the soup. The soup is very spicy. You can almost see the pepper, and then you eat it, and it's delicious. This is from the mother of one of my neighbors, and she's in the village. And on the right are some other dishes: fufu, goat stew, and in the far dish is a rice and beans mixture called wachi that is very delicious and can be eaten all by itself. Ghanaians love their onions, garlic, peppers, lots of spices, and yes, they love their spices. Some of my fellow volunteers had a hard time with this price, but I loved it. It was fantastic. Next slide, please. I mentioned cutting bamboo. When I arrived in the village, they gave me a room with 4 walls and a floor and a ceiling. And then it was up to me to furnish it. And I didn't want to spend any more money than I had to. And I also thought maybe this is my chance to be resourceful and inventive and all these things that Peace Corps volunteers are supposed to be. And so I went down to the river and I cut bamboo. Oh, I also measured. I had to measure the room to see how long to make the bamboo. And I didn't notice that the room was not perfectly square. None of the widths of the walls or heights of the ceiling are the same in the room. It's very solid and very weatherproof, fantastic place to live. But if you see some weird angles that are not exactly 90 degrees, well, nothing is exactly 90 degrees. And speaking of degrees, you can see in the lower left up classroom and ruler and some triangles teaching math. So next slide, please. And here's the school where I taught. Actually, the school where I taught is way up in the background. But because the weather is always warm and sometimes hot, sometimes we just like to bring the desks and the chairs out under the mango tree in the front yard. And here we have a session. I think my colleague Gabriel is giving a science quiz to some of the kids. I loved being able to go out and have class under the tree. The students all carry their own desks, and some of the students even carried the chairs for the teachers, which was a very nice custom. Next slide. And here are some of my fellow teachers. I didn't know anything. I needed to learn a lot. So we would cook in the staff room, and and I see. So that is one of the things they taught me. I see my headmistress with her motorcycle in the lower right. Very charismatic and powerful woman, a force of nature. And in the center at the top is my friend, the English teacher, Obaya. She was my contact person. Anytime I had a problem or question, she was the person who I went to ask for help. Where do I find this? Who do I talk to for that? And she was actually the Peace Corps arranged with Obaya to be my contact. About Peace Corps is it's very, very organized. I knew nothing about, but I went with the full support of the United States government, and 65 years of Peace Corps, 64 years of Peace Corps, started in 1961. They have a very good operation going. So my job was to be a math teacher. I was a junior high school math teacher, because as in many places around the world, a lot of students end up in junior high school without really having a strong foundation in elementary school math. And I discovered that did I worry about any gang activity? I see a question has come up in them. There was activity, but Ghana is a very, very safe place. I never ran into anything even remotely alarming, worrying, or anything. I would routinely leave my grocery bags at random places in the market, and I would go back, pick them up later, and everything I had left in whatever place was still there. And I was not the only one. People are very much in the habit of trusting each other, and in practice, people do not steal from each other or take advantage of each other or worse things. So I know that's one of the nice things about being in Ghana. Probably not true of every Peace Corps posting, but one of the nice things about Ghana was very safe, very generous, very friendly society to be with. Okay, next slide, please. And even though my job was being a teacher, my other job as an American was to spend time with people in my community. Peace Corps has 3 goals, and the first goal is to be teaching or doing health or agriculture. But there's another goal, which is to help members of other countries get to know Americans. And the third one, which is what we're doing right now, is to help Americans get to know people from other countries. I don't know how many of you knew anything about Ghana before today. I didn't know anything about Ghana before I joined the Peace Corps. And so everything, from the very first day, everything was new. And like I said, I found myself very welcomed, very, very warmly taken care of. Lower right-hand picture, I was extremely sought after as a dance partner, even though I couldn't, even though I was very bad at all of the traditional African dances. But all the women wanted to dance with me. It was very nice. Who took care of me from my very first day and is still taking care of me. Upper right, soccer game. Even the enthusiastic soccer fans do not get violent and riot after their team loses. They cheer on. They just like to watch soccer. And in the lower left, that's a big civic occasion. The convenience of everybody that goes to the market on Thursdays, and having a urinal in the market was a great improvement to the whole. I was honored to be there for the dedication. So next slide, please. I think I am almost out of time, but I'll just mention that Ghana also has wonderful natural beauties, natural attractions. I happen to live pretty close to the highest waterfall in West Africa. That's not saying much because West Africa is pretty flat. I also lived close to the highest mountain in Ghana, which is less than 900 meters high. That is less than 3,000 feet. So I think all of you have in your backyards mountains that are higher than the highest. I didn't see in the villages and in the towns is not where you see wildlife. Oh, I see there's a bilingual teacher who has been teaching Ghanaian. Okay, you have probably run into some wonderful Ghanaian languages. I was just going to mention that friendlier of humans under any other circumstances. Oh, actually, before we have the next slide, in the okay, um, okay. On the right hand side, there were several members of my cohort from Ohio, and people from Ohio, Buckeyes, have enormous state pride, and so anytime they had the opportunity to stand in a row for spelling Ohio with their upper bodies, they took the opportunity. The Rotary Club of the Carolinas has any Ohio connection. Okay, now on the next slide. Thanks. Okay, so fast forward 2 years, we are almost finished. And these are the same 11 people that that had just gotten off the plane at the beginning of the presentation. All of us lost a bunch of weight, probably from the Ghanaian diet, which is much lower in calories than the American diet. We finally acquired all matching clothes. The colors are different, but we all have the same pattern. And a couple of us, you can see I'm not the only retiree in the group. My friend Andy in the green shirt is off in the middle. Most everybody is going back to the US. Some are going to go to grad school. Some are going to take jobs. But three of us, in fact, the three of us in the green shirts, we're all going to continue with Peace Corps. We're going to get third years and keep doing the work that we've been doing. So a word of warning: if you decide to try Peace Corps, you might find it habit forming. So let me stop here, and I will look in the chat and see what some of the questions are.
And Bruce, I'll go
or
ahead
just
and
go
read
right
you-
ahead and
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and read you the
yell them
questions.
out.
Yeah. Do you want to can you read the chat easily? Or I can read the questions.
Oh, okay. Chats, very nice, very nice. I see. Okay, I see.
Bruce, can you hear me if I read you the questions and then you can just answer them?
Bruce, can you hear us?
I think you're on mute, Bruce. All right. Can you hear me?
Oh, good.
Yes. Good.
I'm back. I'm back.
Okay.
Let me catch. Let me. I can hear you. I can hear you now.
Yeah, we can.
Which question was I in the middle of answering when we lost contact?
I'm not sure. I can just read the question.
Let me go quickly. Do I have a relationship with the Rotary Club, but projects that are initiated by Peace Corps volunteers? I cannot completely hear you, but maybe you can hear me.
Yes.
So yeah, I can read some of the presentations. Maybe, is Millie Rue there? Millie, can you talk about your ESL bilingual experience teaching Ghanaian students?
I actually had 3 Ghanaian students that I recall. One was kindergarten and the other ones were second, third graders. I taught them for a few years. They were wonderful students. The parents were very engaged and concerned about them. And they worked really hard. They're great kids. And it was a big cultural shift, just like you had going there to the diet, the menu and activities. It was for them also. The school was completely different, obviously, in the United States. But they were great kids.
And Millie, was that in New Jersey?
That was in New Jersey, yes.
And Bruce, when you're
Hey, in New Jersey.
when you're staying on, are you staying in the same village? Are the 3 of you that are staying all staying in the same location that you've been in?
Not at all. That's a very good question. Many times people in the Peace Corps, they have this Peace Corps experience and they want to have another Peace Corps experience, but maybe in a different place. And so one of my fellow Peace Corps volunteers, he is going to have he's going to have his 3rd year in Mexico, so closer to the US, but he will learn another language, just as he learned when he came to Ghana. My friend Andy, the other retiree, he will stay in Ghana and will go to a different town. In fact, he is going to move to the town close to where I was teaching. And I am going to leave my little village and come to Accra. I am going to work in an institution called the African Institute of Mathematical Sciences, which holds mathematics programs for school children, for college students, for grad students, and I am going to be working with them on programs that will cover all of Ghana. So I will be in the work that I used to do when I was driving a school bus loaded with math and science activities in the US. But
And how is the technology?
it'll mostly be different. Nothing is ever the same.
Absolutely. How is the technology and connectivity where you are with computers and cell phone usage?
Oh, amazing. That was my biggest surprise. I was expecting Ghana, 3rd world, developing country, no technology. So it turned out, sure enough, there's still no running water in most houses. It is unknown for most of the country. And there's still not enough sanitary latrines in the communities. On the other hand, every family has a cell phone or smartphone coverage. Everywhere you go in Ghana, you take your cell phone, you take your smartphone, you can call, you can get data, you can surf the internet. And that was a dichotomy, kind of, 2 things totally different next to each other. But we are, Ghana, and I think the same is true of information technology, is bringing people together, bringing people in developing countries in contact with the most advanced technology, and barriers are falling very fast. It's hard for teachers to keep up because there's so much technology around. It doesn't mean that we don't need teachers, because if you're going to be working effectively in a technological world, you need to have a knowledge base. You need to know reading, writing, math, communication, culture, You need to have all the basics in order to function in society. But at least there is, the infrastructure is now there. The information infrastructure, the internet, all of those things. And so I have had, if any of you were in the Peace Corps or know people who were in the Peace Corps 30 years ago, 40 years ago, I am having a very different Peace Corps experience because I have instant connectivity with friends, family, Rotary clubs, people back home.
Yeah, I think it's
Great
interesting.
question.
Yeah, to know that it's a lot easier to get the technology infrastructure in place than things like the water and sanitation infrastructure. Like it takes a lot more work to actually get the sanitary things because they're not electronically connected. So how did you find working in Ghana, the government of Ghana, to be a partner, or how was the relationship with the local governments with having you there?
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Yeah, very interesting. They have Ghana has a very stable democracy. We had a presidential election in the United States, and it was very calm, very civilized. Everybody was nice to each other, and in fact, the Ghanaians spent a lot of time watching the news about the U.S. and thinking, "Boy, yeah, we're doing well." So there's a I'm not saying it's perfect. There is there's corruption, there's inefficiency, there's problems that beset governments all over the world. What I did not realize is that at the same time, the country is alive and well, and in small communities over the most of the country, the traditional tribal government is much more present and much more effective than the national government, the elected representatives. And so every village has a chief, and the chief is almost always a man, but not always a man. The chief traditionally shares power with his mother. So there's always a woman who is sharing power with the chief, and it is always a woman that the chief has to listen to because she's his mom. They do, they don't usually have a queen in that position because many of the chiefs have multiple wives. So if there was a tradition for the wife of a chief to share power, there would be power struggles all over the place. But the chief only has one mom, and so she is the queen mother, and all over Ghana, every village has a queen mother, and the queen mother specifically looks after the well-being of the women and the children in the village. And if the chief is not paying enough attention and directing enough resources to the women and the children, then he will hear about it from his mom. So that's, and however, I would have to say that most of the chiefs, they're not elected. It's hereditary mostly. Not always from father to son, but maybe uncle to nephew or somebody in the family. But if you are in the family, then from your earliest childhood, you are told that you must take care of your village, and that that is your main job. That is the job of the chief. And so most village chiefs take care of their villages. They adjudicate disputes between the villagers. They allocate resources. So that's it's a very, very interesting, and especially they also coexist in in their different spheres with the democratically elected members of. Run into neither of these directly affected my work, but it was the society I lived in all the time. And it was a very interesting part of living in Ghana, the social structure.
So we have time for one more question. So can you talk a little bit about the language, and did you teach the students in English, or how much of their language did you learn and with translation?
Oh, very, very good question. Was formerly a British colony. And so for many years before independence, independence was 1957, but for over 100, maybe 200 years before independence, English was the language of government. It was also the language of education. And so even now, children will go to primary school, and in primary school they are taught in their native African language. And there are almost 50 different native African languages in Ghana. So every child is learning their native language, but they also get lessons in English. They get very intense English education all through elementary school. By the time they get to junior high school, which is the level that I was teaching, they are mostly, and then at junior high school, the classes are all taught in English. Even the classes that are taught by Ghanaian teachers are taught in English, because that is the government edict that junior high school education, senior high school education will all be in English. So when I was teaching in English. When I went shopping, I would shop in Ewe, which is the local language in my area, and so I became very good at buying bread and buying soup and asking directions and saying good morning and good evening to my fellow Ghanaians. But I did not learn any more complicated vocabulary. I didn't have complicated conversations in Ewe with anybody in my community. And of course, most people, most adults, because they have grown up, and almost everybody has gone through primary school. Most people go through junior high school, and a good number of people go through senior high school as well. So most of the people in the community, they were ready to jump in and speak English anytime I was not able to speak Ewe. So, and this was, I think this is unusual. Most countries in Africa, there is much less English, much less European languages, and most Peace Corps volunteers, when they go to other countries, have to spend more time speaking the native language of whichever country they go to. But I was lucky, and if you're nervous about foreign languages but you still want to join the Peace Corps, Ghana is the place for you.
Well, thank you, Bruce. That was a very interesting program, and I am sure that we all learned some different things, not just about the food and the culture and how much English they speak, but definitely appreciate you taking the time to join us. And technology is something that we battle with every time we have a meeting. It seems there's never a dull moment when we're trying to get people to connect. And so we try to keep our patient hats on. And so we like to donate a book to a little free library in honor of our speaker. So this book will be donated in honor of you today, Beatrice's Goat. And it's based on a true story, and it shows how one gift changed the fate of a Ugandan family, especially a young girl who wanted to go to school. So we appreciate your time, and we hope that you enjoy your third year in Ghana.